again, Jordan Peterson said something on a podcast the other day that I was listening to. It was like, it's hard to be humble and not be arrogant about being humble.
It's very
so
difficult.
When you are improving yourself, it's hard not to be arrogant about it. I get it. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of EML Radio. Today is a follow-up show on the most downloaded episode in the first year of EML Radio. And that was the episode that I recorded a while back on getting real about alcohol use. And you guys, I really am just blown away by the response that I received from that episode. And most importantly, I am just really grateful that all of you were willing to reach out to me and let me know how much that show resonated with you. And I gotta tell you, I'm thankful that I actually was brave enough to kind of put my story out there and share it with you guys, because this is really changing lives. I struck a nerve with a lot of you, which I already knew that alcohol use is just overuse, I should say, is just running rampant in our society. But I really honestly didn't realize to what extent. So I had a lot of requests from people to do some follow-ups. And there was a lot of different things that people wanted me to continue discussing about this topic. So I have this on the books for throughout the whole rest of 2021 to periodically discuss different areas of alcohol use. And today I'm starting with bringing on a guest who was someone that reached out to me after that first episode, sent me a video recorded message, and his story just really touched me. And I felt like we really could have some good discussion along his struggle with alcohol use as well. A dad, a professional, definitely someone that is highly functioning so that the rest of the world would really never know the struggle that he was experiencing. And so our first guest today is a gentleman named Paul Vedder, and we're going to get right to it. Paul is going to share his story with you, and I'm going to share a little bit deeper my part of the story, and then also we're going to finish the episode up with giving you guys some takeaways on things that he's doing right now to kind of overcome a battle with alcohol, and then I'm going to give you a couple of takeaways on things that I've been employing in my own life that are helping me out. So hope you enjoy this episode, and there are going to be more to come. So here we go. Hey there.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thank you for having me.
You bet. I just like to give everybody an opportunity to introduce themselves rather than me trying to describe you and give you an introduction. I like to give you the honor of doing that. So can you just briefly tell our listeners who you are, a little bit about you, stuff that we care about?
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Paul Vedder. I am the founding partner and managing director of an IT company based in South Florida. I've been married 14 years, and I have two daughters that we adopted actually from foster care. My wife and I could not have our own kids, so got into the foster care system, ended up adopting our two daughters. And I run an IT business. My wife is a high school math teacher, and just doing life down here in South Florida.
Awesome. With a lot of freedom.
Yes.
Yeah. The rest of the world is, I'm doing the same thing, but most people are not.
We're still in Palm Beach County, so we've actually been under a mask mandate since June. So pretty much, it's kind of, it's not as bad as some other areas. I've done a little light traveling over the last year, but it's definitely, we got to wear masks everywhere we go. And it's kind of hit or miss. Some people, depending on the place that you go, some people don't care. Some people do. what a weird time. What a weird mix.
Yeah, totally. And I never had ever planned, when I launched my podcast last January, I had vowed that I would never do Zoom calls. Just because like I'm such a feeler and I want to be able to sit in a room with someone and actually just absorb their energy and bounce that off one another. But never say never, because obviously I wouldn't have I mean, I live in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, so there's just not that many people here for me to bring on the show. And so here we are via Zoom. And before we talk about all the stuff I wanted to visit with you about today, I have to tell you that I looked a little bit at your Instagram after we had kind of our initial contact, and I didn't realize that you had adopted your girls until I went on to your Instagram and saw that. And it's fascinating to me, because you probably know by now too that I adopted our daughter, Scarlett, after our first daughter had passed away. And we had kind of always thought we were going to adopt, but it's interesting to me that there is some, and I don't even know why it would be, there's just some connection that I have with people, and it seems vice versa. Like I draw people in and I'm drawn to people without even knowing it, that have either struggled with having their own children or that have adopted. It's really, like it gives me chills, because there's just some kind of like spiritual presence there, or just draw between people that have gone down the path that you and I have gone through.
Yeah. Where did you adopt your daughter from?
She's Chinese.
Chinese. Okay. So I actually have I have two siblings that are also adopted from China. So
really,
adoption and foster care kind of ran in my family. So that's kind of how it was easy for me to go down that road, or easier, I guess I should say, to go down that road when we found out we couldn't have our own kids. So
yeah. Well, kudos. Awesome. And I love it. I just love those stories, and I love seeing families that are brought together in that way. It's a beautiful thing. Yeah. Awesome. So, I am so honored to have you on the show. And first of all, I want to thank you for your vulnerability.
Absolutely.
Because, and I almost hate that word anymore, because it's thrown around so much, like kind of Brene Brown kind of coined it, about 5 years ago. And now everybody's like, oh, be vulnerable, be vulnerable. But now we've kind of attached like a falsity to vulnerability, right? It's like either oversharing or, just saying too much of the things that people don't want to hear about, where true vulnerability to me is like being willing to be scared, to be open, and then being brave enough to do it anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Yep. And there's that connection there. I used to not be vulnerable. And I would not share in the past. And I there's family history there, but when I started doing that, it was amazing how people just continued to reach out to me after I started talking about certain things. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm struggling with the same thing, or I'm going through this, just like you are. And the human connection that happens when somebody's vulnerable is incredible. So I'm going to live the rest of my life just being vulnerable like that, because we're all in this together. And I think that that's a huge problem now with our current climate, politically, whatever, culturally, everything that's going on. The fighting is driving me nuts. And we just got to realize that it's not Republican versus Democrat. It's not, Christians versus Muslims. Like all these, we've put ourselves in these tribes, and now we're fighting, and we forget that we're human. Like we're all going to the same destination together. Like, why not do it together? Why not lock arms and connect that way? It's weighing on my heart a lot.
I hear you. It was really kind of one of the reasons that I started this show, and that I called it EML Radio, because I didn't want it to just be kind of tagged as just kind of another podcast that's out there. Because I mean, now it's like everybody and their dog is just starting a podcast, right? Yep. It's like buy a $50 microphone and set your computer and go. And I don't think that's necessarily a good thing. But then I called it Talking Truth, because the whole point was for people to be able to come on and share their story and share their life's true experiences, because we don't do enough of that.
Yes.
And then you compound the problem with social media, where we kind of have this false ideal of how people live, right? Because people really aren't being vulnerable. They're really not being honest on there.
Yep.
So you take that in combination with people, it's hard to share your story, right? It's really hard to share your story with people that you don't even know.
Yeah.
But I think the only way, like where we're at right now, the only way we come through this, even if it's in my lifetime or hopefully within my daughter's, is that people start hearing other people's stories and realize, regardless of how different our beliefs are, how different our religious practices, our political practices, none of that matters, because we all have something valuable to share if we tell our stories and if we're willing to listen to other people's stories.
Yes.
Because the minute you don't think,
the minute you
think, listening is a huge part of it, right? And if you think you don't have something to learn from absolutely every single person on this planet, then you are living with a blind arrogance.
Oh, huge. Yes, that is absolutely huge. I had a buddy's wife one time tell me, she's like, I just want to be as happy as I see all my friends on social media being. And I'm like, what? No, that's not at all how this works. It's all fake.
It is all fake. And you said that, and it's funny because I just posted something on my new social media platform, my private server that I have, that I moved all my social media onto just yesterday, that said, this came to me when I was working out in the gym, and I wrote it down on my whiteboard, that if happiness is your singular focus in life, you are completely diminishing the whole human experience.
Yes.
So everybody's in this pursuit of quote unquote happiness, but I'm like, the people that are looking for the most happiness are typically the people that find the least of it, because they're not willing to go through all the anger, jealousy, greed, contention, right? Rage, all of the ugly emotions. People don't want to deal with those. They're all just in this kind of false pursuit of happiness. And it really kind of it really does downplay the purpose of your whole existence.
For sure. I've kind of been on this personal development journey for like the last 3.5 years. And I was one before that pursuing that happiness. And obviously I found it and we'll probably get into that, but I found it in different avenues, but I felt like I was on this carousel, and I've actually fell in love with, now going through this personal development process, fell in love with the process of like identifying things that are wrong in my life and then just executing them, just completely like a sniper. Like I'm trying to find the things that I don't like about myself or about my situation, whatever it is, and realizing that it's me versus me every day. You know, I have to kill those things that I don't want or that I don't need in my life. I'm responsible for them.
Dude, like I'm coming to South Florida so we can go out to dinner.
Let's do it.
I want to meet your family. Like I want to have this conversation in the flesh, and I will definitely make that happen this year. I promise. I've got a trip to Florida on the books anyway, so it's like, we'll make it happen. But anyway, so that is the perfect lead in to kind of like the whole reason that you and I connected was because when I recorded my, my episode on getting real about alcohol use, you had reached out to me and you had sent me actually a video message as you were out walking. I think you're doing 75 hard and we're out walking, and it was like, it really moved me. And you weren't alone in that. I literally got hundreds of direct messages from people. But you were someone that actually sent me a video message, which really meant a lot to me. And I just really connected with your story. And so that's kind of a good lead in to when you just said you used to seek that happiness and looking for things. I'm assuming alcohol kind of played a part in that.
Absolutely. A huge part. Yeah. So I'm a son of an alcoholic, have alcoholism it runs in my family. My grandmother was an alcoholic, my grandfather, all on my father's side. And I grew up in church also. So grew up in a pretty hardcore evangelical Christian community in church. So drinking wasn't a thing. Like I didn't spend my teenage years partying. So I waited till I was 21 to drink. I got married pretty young. It was actually 9 days before my 21st birthday. And I may have had like a Mike's Hard Lemonade before that or two, just kind of at a different situation or whatever, but I'd never actually drank to any extent. So I turned 21 and or actually on our honeymoon, my wife is a little older. She actually had to buy the champagne on our honeymoon so we could celebrate, because I wasn't 21 yet. So
That's a fucking great story.
Yeah. So we just, neither one of us had drank, and probably a year or two into our marriage, I'm like, let me see what this is all about. And kind of as you start to drink, you start off like drinking Mike's Hard Lemonade, because nobody goes straight to an IPA and go, these are delicious. Like,
oh God,
no. you kind of acquire that taste. So of course, like, I tasted beer and I didn't really like it. So when somebody doesn't like beer, what do you drink? Bud Light Lime. So you drink like the flavored beers and stuff like that. So I opened this door of, trying all these things. And we even got to a point where, like I said, it was the first year or two in our marriage that my wife and I and two of our friends are like, we've never been like drunk, or we've never like drank. Let's go out and get some booze, and we'll stay at home and we'll have some drinks and we'll get a little drunk. And that was like, it was kind of like a exploratory thing. And because we had not grown up and we had not done that. So because a lot of people have these stories where like, I drank so much, started drinking when I was 13, and that's just not my story. So
yeah, that's my story. Like, I drank for the first time. I can't remember if it was 7th or 8th grade, but one of the two. And my daughter's in 8th grade now, and that just blows my mind, right?
Yeah, that's
the
crazy.
First time I ever got actually drunk was in the 8th grade. So
that's
I have
crazy.
the typical, like, start when you're in 8th grade, and chances are you're going to struggle with alcohol.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Right, surprise.
So I didn't have that story. And it was almost like a rebellious period of my life where I was like, I did everything that everybody told me to do, because I was a good kid. I followed the rules. I was always that rule follower. So I followed everybody's rules. And now I'm an adult. I live in my own house. I'm married. So I'm going to do things the way I want to do them, because I'm an adult. And I was told growing up that, I lived under a certain set of rules. I lived in my parents' household. I had to follow their rules. And I came from that background. So now I'm an adult and I'm going to do whatever the hell I want. That was kind of like my thing. So started drinking. We got together. We had an evening. We got a little drunk, and it was fun. It wasn't even that big of a deal. But over time, I started to realize that I would come home, and if work was stressful, if I had a bad day, the easiest thing was to grab a beer, and it all kind of just goes away. And we started struggling in our marriage and things like that. And this is a period of probably 5 or so years, but we started struggling in our marriage. We figured out we couldn't have kids. There was just a lot of stress there. It was early on in my career. I was trying to make or progress in my career very quickly, because my wife wanted to be a stay-at-home mother at some point. So just all of that stress, long story short, I started to turn to alcohol as a way to just take the edge off. And about 4 years ago, it had gotten to a point where I was drinking every day. And I had started drinking beer, and then I moved to liquor because beer wasn't doing it for me. I couldn't drink. I would drink, 8 beers or 10 beers, and I'm a pretty big guy, so it would take a lot. But then I switched to liquor, and it kind of got worse and worse. But about 4 years ago, we were over at a neighbor's house. We were all drinking, and we were about to head home. And when I say neighbor, I literally mean like 2 houses down. And I had driven my truck over there for some reason, and my wife and I were leaving with our 2 kids, and she's like, "Oh, I'll drive," and I'm like, I can drive. We're literally 2 houses down. Like, it's not even a block away. It's literally 2 houses down. Well, that started an argument because I had been drinking, and I didn't see the big problem with me driving my truck a few hundred feet down a private dirt road. It wasn't that big of a deal to me. Well, that escalated very, very quickly. And I ended up getting very angry, and Robin locked herself in the bedroom, and I punched a hole in our door, and just in a drunken stupor. And the look on my wife's face of fear, being afraid of me, was really tough for me to see. She thought that I was going to hit her. And I had no intention, not even in that moment did I have, I wasn't going to hit her. Definitely put a hole in the door because I was angry. But I had no intentions of hurting her, but just seeing the fact that she was afraid of me, like I was going to cause her harm, really messed me up. And I actually ended up getting in my truck, driving over to our grocery store. I needed dinner. I was going to try to sober up, so I drove over drunk over to Publix, our grocery store here, and got a sandwich. And I sat in the car and I ate a sandwich and I cried, and I was appalled at myself. I couldn't believe that I had let such a stupid little thing. Just, there was no reason for me to drive. Like, she just could have driven down the street. But little did I know that was going to be the situation that actually started this catalyst of me getting the personal development. And but it was talking to her after that and just realizing how scared she was, and how much of an emotional state I was in at that time. So suicide runs in my family. It's always been kind of a thing, that my uncle killed himself when I was about 2. And that's just been a thing in our family. When suicide happens in a family, it's like this curse that emanates throughout the family. And I didn't have anything on me, or I wasn't going to hurt myself. But if there was any time that I was thinking about it, it probably would have been that night, because I was disgusted with myself. I was so upset at myself.
I totally relate to that too. I didn't know we had that in common. But my dad killed himself when I was 10.
Wow.
Yeah. I have lots of personal experiences with down that road that I haven't shared publicly. I'm writing a book right now that'll have some more insight into like my real big struggles when I was in high school. But yes, I totally, and then my dad's brother commit suicide as well. We weren't terribly close. Yeah. So I lost my dad he asphyxiated himself when my parents, they had been married for 25 years, going on 25 years when I was 10, and they divorced, and he just couldn't manage through it. He had a long upbringing of abuse and alcoholism in his family. And he took his own life. He asphyxiated himself when I was 10. So I really do know exactly where you're coming from.
Yeah. It's a crazy, just looming thing in the air that happens when that's in a family. And I don't ever want to have to I don't ever want to have to experience that again, like, just because it's already happened. I pray to God that doesn't, nobody else in the family or whatever. It's a hard thing to deal with. It's like, it's a thing that just continues generationally or whatever it was. But it was that basically, I don't know if it was the next day, but through our conversation, Robin was like, you've got to change something like this. You can't do what you're doing here. And I agreed. And long story short, we actually found, my wife got on Apple Podcasts, found a marriage podcast, and we ended up listening to that together. And that started a whole lot of work within our marriage. But within that same week, I needed something for myself. And I ended up finding the MF CEO project. And I found Andy Frisella. Yeah. And between that marriage podcast, Anatomy of Marriage is what it's called. It's an amazing podcast, Seth and Melanie. Studley.
It's called Anatomy of Marriage?
Anatomy of Marriage.
Okay.
Awesome people. I've got to become friends with them over the last couple of years.
Oh, nice.
They're amazing people. And they have poured so much into my life. Yeah. But then I found Andy Frisella, and between Seth and Melanie and Andy Frisella, those 3 people changed my life in a major, major way. And I hope one day, to meet Andy and shake his hand and just say thank you, because he started me on this journey, and it continued with 75 Hard. It's changed my life, and the work that I've put in over the last 3 years. I know that people around me feel this way, but I am not the same person I was 3-4 years ago. Do I still struggle? Absolutely. This week, there was one night this week that I drank too much, and I still find myself using alcohol to take the edge off. I'm drinking less and less than I have, and I'm not to that point where I can say I'm giving up alcohol completely. I can't place that stake in the ground yet. I know it's coming, but I'm not ready yet. I still think that I can control it, and that's the stupidity of it. It has gotten better. Things have gotten better, and really the one thing that's actually motivating me now is my health and fitness, because I've always been a heavier guy. I've gained and lost probably 40 or so pounds over the last 2 years through 75 Hard, doing it twice. And I lost a bunch of weight, gained some of it back, lost a lot of it again. And so right now, one of my biggest motivators outside of my family, my marriage, and being a good dad, I'm trying to stay away from the alcohol so that I can get in shape and so that I can be happy. But, you know, I struggle with the anxiety that you talked about, you know, the weight gain and just, you know, if I'm going to drink, you know, I think it's a good idea for some reason at 11:30 to heat up a whole freaking frozen pizza and eat it by myself. You know, that's the stuff that alcohol does to you. And I came to the realization, I was journaling a couple of weeks ago, and I realized that I was letting my evenings steal my mornings. So when I don't drink like an absolute asshole or eat like an absolute asshole, and they kind of go hand in hand, but when I don't do that in the evening, I can get up at 5 a.m. I can read my books that I want to. I can journal, and I can do the things that are important to me. So, but when I do drink and when I do have a night that I party, you know, it basically ruins the next day. It definitely ruins the morning, but it even ruins into the next day because, you know, if I'm drinking regularly, I battle the anxiety. And the anxiety is so bad that when I come home, I drink to get rid of the anxiety. And it's just this crazy, endless loop that goes on and on and on. And it's just, I hate how good I feel when I don't drink, because that tells me that I shouldn't be drinking. So that was a lot, but that's kind of that's the story.
Well, the first fact that you like even recognize it, right? Because you have to realize how many people out there don't even recognize that, right? They don't even recognize how good they feel when they don't drink, right? But beyond that, like there's so many things in that, man, I don't even know where to start with where I connect with you on it. Cause I totally get it. Now we have a different story from upbringing wise, as far as drinking early on. But I've gone times where I've gone years without drinking at all. When I was competing in CrossFit, like as a master, right? Cause I'm 48 now, but that was like, I started competing when I was well, it was actually, they announced the 40-year-old age bracket for the games went on my 40th birthday when I was on a cruise. And I was like, fuck yeah. Like, all right. Cause when you're 39 trying to do CrossFit and compete in a regular age division, you had to wait until you were 45. It's like, but anyway, so I went long chunks of time when I had deep purpose in my life. And when I was not when I had my purpose, that's the wrong way to describe it. Cause I always know I have a purpose, but when I was really connected to it and knew in action what it looked like in my everyday life. That's a better way to put it. When I was connected to that and acting on it, alcohol was like literally the furthest thing from my mind. And I resonate with you in saying like, okay, I'm not at a point where I'm just going to say I'm going to quit drinking completely either. Like I haven't completely quit drinking. And I know that people who have been through recovery would be like, oh, they're just in total delusion land, right? But I'm just going to tell you, like, I don't like, that's part of the stigma of why I don't want to quit drinking either.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? And I don't make blanket statements because I just think it shows a level of ignorance, but they're like all conservatives, all liberals, right? Like I hate that. That just shows you know nothing about individuals, but there is a propensity for people that have gone through treatment to be like, we're a group, right? And then anybody that does drink, they probably have a problem, right? And so I haven't found my place in that world. That would be the best way to describe it. And I know plenty of people who've gone completely through recovery and are just, that isn't the way they view things, but I have a whole nother people that I've been associated with that do see things that way. And I don't know, like I'm at a place right now where I am completely controlling what I drink. Like I haven't drank this year. It's like, I don't have any desire to, because I recognized how bad things had gotten for myself. And it took me a while though. It wasn't easy to just put it into practice to correct those things. But towards the end of last year, I was able to find the pieces where I connected what was I looking for? And when I drink, I was looking for the feeling of kind of elation. So I'm super funny. Like when I'm going to sound braggadocious, but I'm really not. Like I'm a person that people are like, fuck, I want to go out with her because she is fun, right? Like I'll do handstand push-ups in a bar. I like dance. And I like that about me, right? And I always connected that like, oh, if I have a couple of drinks, that's me. And that kind of was always true. But in the last 3 years, when I went through just a lot of life changes, had my shoulder surgery, I won't rehash all that, but literally my whole entire world did a 180, everything about it. School, where I lived, what I did for a living, everything, lost competing. And I realized I was no longer drinking because it was fun, but I didn't see it. And it was my daughter who said something to me that really, oh, it's heartbreaking. And now this last year I learned how to cry too. So you already made me cry once on here, which I've only cried like twice in 5 years. And now it's already, how many days are we into 2021? 15?
Yeah.
This may make me cry too. She said to me, you know, it's just funny because we're really open about it too. So like, there's no hiding in our family.
Yeah.
So like when I've drank too much, she knows, right? And everybody's kids do know, but whether they admit that they know is the whole other story, right? Because your kids know if you're drunk. But she said to me, you know, it's just funny. She's like, I don't really necessarily hate it. It makes me nervous. And she said, but what I don't understand is like when I watch movies or when you see shows and stuff and people are like having fun when they're drinking, she was like, you just don't seem like you're having very much fun. You're actually kind of mean.
Wow. That's incredible.
Oh,
Holy
and like
smokes.
Heartbreaking, right? I'm like,
Yeah,
as someone,
geez.
so for one, I mean, I planned my first daughter's funeral, picked out her casket, planned her funeral, put her in the ground. I know the value in being able to have and raise a child, right? Like I get it. And I really take that job so serious. So I'm like, here I am, who really, when I made the decision to adopt, like devoted like my life, this, like God entrusted this girl to me. He brought her all the way across the world to me.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big honor. And then here I am making her nervous. And she doesn't even recognize me when I drink because she says like, that's not fun. Like, you're just kind of mean. How horrible.
That is heartbreaking.
Right?
And my kids they're 6 and 7. They're 6 months apart. So, and they're not biologically related. So they have made comments like about how often I drink. They're like, oh, you're getting another beer. They actually call it beard because they did that when they were little. They mispronounced beard, but they're like, oh, daddy's getting another beard. And so they haven't. It hasn't gone beyond that. But even that little thing, like them just noticing like how many times I'm reaching into the fridge for another beer is just, it's gut wrenching. It really, really is. It hurts.
Oh, yeah, it does. But you know, what's crazy about it is that didn't necessarily stop me either.
For sure.
So that just goes to show you the power of addiction, right?
Yep.
And when you've developed a habit where you just completely rely on something to escape, because as much, I don't love anything on the face of the planet more than I love that girl, truly.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I was still willing to put her through that. Like, that's crazy. Right.
Yeah.
But I had really, for me, I just had developed a process where the real trouble came in is when I drank to overcome a hangover.
Oh, yeah.
Because when you get to that point, like, I don't know if you follow much of Jordan Peterson stuff, but Jordan Peterson, I consider him just like a remote mentor. He's my bucket list. Like, I need to meet that guy. Yeah, I would feel like life was fully complete if I actually eventually get to interview him and sit in a room with him. He's changed my life. But he has some really powerful teaching along, like, because he's a clinical psychologist. And so he knows neurologically what's happening in the brain when you've done that, and that you develop what's called a positive feedback loop.
Yes.
So when your behavior, then even though it's a negative behavior, when you drink again, you create a positive response from that, and anything in that, like, that's not just with alcohol, that's with any kind of behavior. Once you've created that positive feedback loop, it just goes in circles and circles and circles. Yeah. And that's where I have been for the last 2 years, really. Like, day drinking, because I get up early, I'd be great, but by noon I was like, and I don't want to drink with people. I want to drink alone. Okay. Because my job is this. Yeah, my job's people all the time, right? And people, like, I live in a fairly small town and I've been here for a really long time and am influential in my community. And so people know me everywhere I go. It's just like, oh my gosh, like, they don't leave me alone. And so for me, it was like, go have 2-3 glasses of wine at lunch and then be like, well, I'll go home. And now I'm just buzzed enough to open a bottle at home. And before I know it, like, I can't even cook dinner.
Yep.
It's really
yeah.
harmed my family. It really, really harmed my family severely.
Yeah,
Um,
I connect with that just on a major way. That's
yeah.
I totally get that.
Yeah. And with as much traveling as I did, not just now, but like even for the decade that I own my coaching facility, because I really value learning. And so I've been taught by the best of the best in the fitness world and nutrition world. So I always traveled to these seminars and events, and I was alone. And so I would drink in the airport. And I think that you had posted something about like you had your lunch, but didn't, and you were eating
Yeah,
colors, not calories, which I was like,
yes, I
yes.
was. Yeah, no,
But
that's a
the
huge
one or
thing.
two drinks.
I have a fear of flying. I hate flying. So
Mm.
like that was and I actually, that was one of the moments I think that accelerated my alcoholism or my dependency on alcohol was I traveled for 6 months full time. I was working in Washington, D.C., and I literally traveled every week. I flew back and forth. And when you're traveling, you drink in the airport, you fly there, and then I'm working all week. I'm alone. My wife is still here. So there's nothing to do it in the evenings except go to a restaurant, go to a bar, have some drinks, eat dinner, and you go back to your hotel. And I did that for 6 months. And that's where I think that kind of was a hyper focus of me, like really developing a dependency on alcohol. So when I posted that on my Instagram that I was flying without drinking, that's a big thing for me because I usually have to have a drink or two to get on a plane just to calm my nerves. And when you were talking about just being around people and your town and stuff like that, I'm a people pleaser and I'm a people person. And I don't know if you know the Enneagram, but I'm a 3. So I'm a salesman. I'm just kind of the life of the party sort of thing. So probably similar to you, or fun when I'm drinking and things like that. So, but I wear a mask around people. So I can go pretty much into any people group and fit in for the most part. I'm kind of a chameleon. I can kind of take on whoever I'm hanging out with. So in turn, I don't know who I am. So when I get home, I want to take off the mask and just like relax. So that's my way of, just again, taking the edge off. That's my saying for my drinking is just taking the edge off of putting on a mask and being whoever I need to be for the people that I'm around during the day. Like that's probably one of the main reasons I've discovered that I do that. Just because I don't know who I am, and just performing for people every day, all day, day in and day out, and owning a business and things like that. It's just, I just need to come home and take that edge off, just calm my mind. And in turn, that actually, when we like me and my wife will go on date nights, I have a problem with connecting with her. But if I have a drink or two, I'm chatty Cathy. I can talk, and I feel like the whole beer, that's who you think you are when you're drinking. It changes you or maybe exposes you. And I don't know, is it the real you that's inside that it's exposing, or is it a fake you? I'm still trying to figure that out for myself. But I do know that when I drink, I have a little more patience with my kids because everything's fun and it's okay. And it's just, I'm not as stressed out but I don't want to have to rely on alcohol to connect with my wife or my kids. That is so idiotic. I don't want that at all for my life. So.
Yeah. Again, you said so many things there that I just completely connect with. And I started going through some therapy because I was like, the one positive shining thing about all this is that when I recognize something, I'm not one to just blame it on other people or deny it, or I'm like, we're going to figure this shit out. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it. And so I sought out just a therapist, and we worked through Brene Brown has kind of like an alcohol awareness kind of program. And I didn't go through like any kind of formal program, but we worked through this one-on-one because after she met me, she was like, you're just going to take over the whole group and like tell everybody how to fix. Like you're going to facilitate instead of be here to help, to actually get help. So we worked together for several months, and it was really enlightening to me. And I'm still in the process of exactly that, trying to figure out, and it's kind of one of two people who I really am. And I'm getting closer to connecting with that. And I'm drawing new boundaries. So I was actually really, really shy, believe it or not, when I was little. I was shy, but I always wanted to perform. So like I was the kid who, like I hosted the Wizard of Oz play in my garage, and I would go to all the neighbors and hand out invitations and pamphlets and the playbill. But I was shy. And then when I got into high school, I changed schools from a private school and developed really early. And so it was like, I was a cheerleader, I was attractive. That was like, I was the girl.
Yeah.
So from that early time, I got pegged as like the leader, and I was always in someone's kind of limelight. Right.
Yeah.
So like negatively or positively. And a lot of it was very negative, especially from other women.
Yeah.
And so I kind of got this harsh edge about me. And then I was in the financial world as a female and powerful. So I got a little deeper edge. And then my first daughter died. And so I became this person or this persona that I think was really imposed on me by the outside world, but yet I owned it. I just stepped right into that character. And and we went through, my therapist and I went through a lot of discussion on which person am I? Like, am I that shy girl that really does like to perform and stuff, but is an introvert really at heart? And I'm realizing that really is who I am. Like if I had my choice, like every day, all day, I would do nothing but learn and read and write.
That's amazing.
And so that's why like this year, like I'm doing podcasts, a couple of like just like 1-2 days a month. And the rest of the time I'm completely underground writing my book. Because I sold my business 3 years ago in order to write a book, and it's 3 years and I'm not writing a book. I'm like, no wonder I'm so unhappy. No wonder I'm going out and drinking at lunch, right? Because I'm not even being who I am. But like a really good takeaway for people in that is it's not a one day you just figure it out and then you just flip the switch, right? Like
it's
that's just
every day.
Real.
It's a battle. It's every day. It's discovery. It's bringing solutions to new things that you're going to discover. And it's just this, I don't want to say like it's a black hole, but it's kind of a black hole of just, it's going to go on until you're dead. It's going to go on, and there's nothing else to do but to continue learning about yourself, discovering things, and then, fixing the things that are negative in your life. I mean, that's just, it's an oversimplification, but that is what it is.
No, it really is.
And I've gotten to a point, and I'm really trying to work on this now, because I've done so much personal development and I'm doing it actively that I'm actually losing patience for those around me. Because I'm looking at people around me and I'm like, do you not see like what you're doing to yourself, your attitude, the way you live, the things that you could easily fix by just executing on just a couple little things. I'm just losing patience, and I'm really trying to work through that and be generous and realize that I was there 3-4 years ago. But when you dive into kind of the personal development world and you start working on yourself very purposefully, it's amazing what is uncovered and what you can see in other people, not only obviously yourself, but in other people. And it's amazing how much your life changes. Because
and it's hard not to be arrogant in it, right?
It is like so hard.
It's so very hard not to be arrogant in it. Again, Jordan Peterson said something on a podcast the other day that I was listening to. It was like, it's hard to be humble and not be arrogant about being humble.
It's very
so
difficult.
When you are improving yourself, it's hard not to be arrogant about it. I get it. It was one of the reasons that I sold my coaching facility, because we had done a lot of awesome things for people in my community, and for just even developing other coaches, and that had kind of lived its lifeline. But I also recognized that I was becoming really resentful, and resentment is just, it's like a cancer.
Yeah.
Right. When you start feeling resentment towards other people, it eats away at you. And I was feeling resentful for that very reason. Like, I show up every day. Our place was never even very profitable, just really because I just loved it, right? I did it because I loved it. And I didn't coach. I paid my coaches way beyond anything in the norm. So personally, financially, it wasn't productive for me at all. But I got to the point where I was resentful towards people for not really living out all of the tools that I was giving them. Yeah. So that was one of the reasons I had to step away. But when I did, and I did my online business, I found myself in that same trap. And I realized it had nothing to do with them. It has to do with me. Yeah. And this is really just in the last 6 months where I recognize, and now I don't feel any kind of resentment whatsoever. It's why I went from, Instagram, Facebook, I'm off that completely and developed my own platform. Cause I'm like, I'm not going to spend time spreading my message to people that really just don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
And if I attach my value to whether or not someone takes action on what their life is, then I'm diminishing me. It's not hurting them at all, but it's hurting me. right? And so I've just declared, like I vowed, like I'm knowledgeable, I'm passionate, I love people, and I love to help. And then if people want that, they're just gonna have to find me. And then the people that have already found me are going to have to spread the word for me, right? So that's the way people are going to come to me versus me constantly seeking people down, because it makes me resentful towards them when they don't take action.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw one of your posts before you got off Instagram about, why are you still, if you don't like social media, then why are you still on it, sort of thing. I mean, that's an oversimplification of what you said, but that was basically your point. And I got off Facebook probably close to 2 years ago, because I was mindlessly scrolling it. I'm on Instagram, but I'm so over it. The only thing that I am gonna miss, once I get off of it, because I'm pretty sure I'm gonna delete my account here soon. But I love it because it connects. I wouldn't have met you, or we wouldn't be having this conversation, because if it had not been for social media. However, with along the lines of like losing patience for people that aren't developing themselves, like I'm looking around at the people around me, and I only have a very few select number of people that are actually working on themselves like I am. So my friendships are changing. I'm cutting people out of my life. I've done a mass unfriending or unfollowing on Instagram of people that just don't add value to my life. And it's a bummer, because I'm a people person and I love being around people. But if there's something in my life that's not adding value and pushing me towards my goals, there's just, I have to get rid of it. And that was one of the things that actually came out initially of my personal development journey. Was I realized, I was like, I have goals, and I had loose goals because I never wrote them down. I wasn't actually like being pointed about going after my goals, but I had goals in my mind of things I wanted to accomplish. But I realized that my actions did not meet my goals. So what I was doing on a day-to-day basis had nothing to do with being able to end up where I wanted to be. So I have changed that. And I wrote that on my bathroom mirror. It's been on my bathroom mirror for years now, is, your actions need to meet your goals, basically. And I'm taking very pointed and very purposeful action to fix things in my life, to get rid of people that I need to get rid of, to get around people that I need to get around. The Arte syndicate that we're a part of, it's huge. I need to dive more into it. I need to connect more, because I've kind of just taken a back seat and haven't been connecting with people like I should. But I need to dive into that, because I need to be around those people, because when I'm around those people and I can talk with those people that are working on themselves like I am me, it propels me forward more quickly. And it's just so encouraging. So
I have two, and again, I hate to pigeonhole, but I have really kind of two categories of people that I'm willing to spend my time with and my life with. And those are people that know a lot more than I do and are willing to teach me. And I actively seek those people out. Like Ben Newman's my coach now. Like I seek people out. He spoke at the Arte, the first syndicate event, and I literally got off the call at the break and emailed him. I was like, I need to have you in my life. Like, what do I need to do to make that happen? Right. So those people that are willing to teach me because they already are somewhere that I'm striving to be. And then people that want to do the same to me, where maybe I'm further along than they are, and they want to come along on this road with me, and they want to know what I have to offer. Those are the only two kinds of people I have room for in my life. And that really, like, not the whole, I hate the censoring on social media and all that stuff, but that was not why I left, right? It was to do with most of my time on social media was being absorbed by people that didn't fit either of those categories, right? 50 some direct messages every morning from people that are like, hey, should I eat, fucking fat-free shit in the morning? Like, kind of like, well, people do pay me to teach them that stuff. Like, so there's that option for you, right? But I'll tell you, it's scary, especially like for someone like myself. I don't have a huge audience yet, right? And so when I leave social media used to be the way like people like you found me. Right. We connected through social media. So if I cut that off, what do I do? Now we're trying to figure out, how do I reverse engineer this? What I do is get out there with people like yourself, like all these people that really I genuinely connect with, and have them help me spread the word. She's a great person. She's knowledgeable. She wants to help you. And then people come in through my private platform, but it's scary as shit, right? Because you're giving up a whole audience. And from a business standpoint, it's hard. But I'll tell you, we've only been over there this is the first week. And the people that moved over there with me are not the people that have like known me forever, my friends, and just kind of want to like see into my life. They're people that actually actively engage with me. It's
That's
like
amazing.
I'm on cloud nine. I haven't had this much energy in probably 2 years, simply because of making that change.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, you're gonna have one more follower on your platform. I'm
Awesome.
gonna hit you up because you are one of those people. I can't tell you what an honor it is to talk to you, because I saw you from afar in that first syndicate group, and my goal was to be there. I want to be there. And I have mutual friends with Miss Bull Moose, Amanda. Yeah. So I kind of connected with her a little bit. But you guys, and I have my target on a few people in that group, like Aaron Nash. I want to meet some of these people because I need them in my life, and I want them in my life. Because I have nobody that operates like you guys do around me, period. And it's scary. Like Seth and Melanie, they're a great example of amazing people that are working towards their goals and doing the same thing that I'm doing. They're in Seattle. They're far away. So, but anyways, it is an honor to be here talking with you, because I've been watching you for a little while, and I have looked up to you, and I've been just you and just that most of those people in that group are just, I want to be there, and I will be there. I will be there one day. I mean, I had a dream a few months ago that I was at Ed Milet's house, and he was interviewing me on his podcast. Like, it was one of the best dreams I had.
Have you read Matthew McConaughey's new book?
No, it's on my book.
Okay, well, speaking of dreams, like, remember that when you read that book, because that is phenomenal, and you got to act on those dreams. That's the thing. Like, I mean, truly, like, I read that book because I'm writing my book right now, and it gave me a whole lot of like direction and stuff. But anyway, keep in mind on the dream thing. And I am the clip where you mentioned Andy and how much he changed your life, that really moved me and stuff. And I'm gonna send that to Andy.
I appreciate that,
because he would want to hear that. Just like,
thank you.
I'll get in his ear for you. So let's kind of bring this full circle and give, I always like to give people, once we've shared our stories, it's like, give them some tools, right? So that they can leave this episode and go like, I have some things that I can actually put in place to help me, because I relate to this and I'm struggling in the same way. So if you could give us just like a couple of even just actionable items that you're doing to help yourself not use alcohol as a crutch or other things.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. I think one of the biggest things, and I actually had a conversation with a couple of people this week because they asked me the same thing. I think the biggest thing you can do right now is, if you're struggling, if you feel like you're on this carousel and you're just kind of living life and you're reacting to the life around you, sit down and write out some goals. What do you want to do with your life? Where are you going? And then figure out the action items that you need to take to actually execute on those goals. So I love to read. And I wasn't reading because I was spending my nights getting fucked up. So I realized that if I wanted to read in the morning, get up early and wanting to read and work out, I needed to not drink the night before or eat like an absolute asshole. So it was me identifying the goals, and then, like you said, reverse engineering the action items to get to that step. So, or to those goals. I think that's the biggest thing that somebody can do, is just identify the goals. What do you want to do with your life? Whatever it is, and then just reverse engineer. So like for me, again, it was wanting to get up, wanting to work out, wanting to read, wanting to journal. And every time I drink, I don't do those things. I sleep in, I'm too lazy, I've got a headache, I don't feel good. It's the same shit. So I think that's the biggest thing. Stop what you're doing right now, go write out some goals, and then figure out how to execute on those goals.
Love it. Totally love it. For me, it's all associated to the feeling. And so how do I replace that feeling with something else? Because the excitement and kind of fun, everything else in the initial stage of drinking for me is still real, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And something edgy like for me, I was kind of like sitting in a basement, you know, in my cheerleading outfit, smoking a bowl, and watching Headbangers Ball.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, people really would not believe that unless I showed you some pictures of my hair when I was in high school. But I need edgy in my life.
Yeah.
I have to, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm married and have a child and live a pretty normal, quiet life. Like, that's not edgy.
Yeah.
Right? So like, and that's nothing on them.
Yep.
Right. So I have to replace that edgy with something that's productive edgy.
Yep.
And it used to be CrossFit for me. And then when I couldn't compete anymore after I had my surgery, it was like, fuck, I don't have anything edgy in my life. So I have to replace it with loud music, go out in my gym. I'm to the point now where I can work out fully and stuff. And so getting myself back to almost like a competitive level, I'll never compete again because I don't have an interest and I don't have the time, but getting that fitness level back in my life where it has nothing to do with weight and all that, but just being able to do really hard shit, right? Deadlift 300 pounds and at 50 years old, that's pretty good, right? It's like, that's the kind of stuff that lights me up the way drinking lights me up. So I'm doing that instead of drinking.
Yeah. And I found things, so like in the evenings, instead of cracking a beer, I'll go make some tea. As it might sound lame, but there definitely needs to be some replacement there. So, you know, I got like, they have like sleepy time tea or something like that from Celestial Seasonings, whatever.
Yep,
So I started kind of getting into like craft tea and things like that, and trying to just, there's got to be a replacement. And even if you know, because I have like non-alcoholic beer, so I'll drink that from time to time. That stuff, when you take it out of your life, it definitely leaves a hole. So you need to figure out something that will fill it, and something that, like you said, productive, or else you're just going to go back to your old ways. So,
got it. This was so good. We're definitely going to do it again, but next time we're going to do it in person. Okay.
Love it.
I'm just inviting myself to your house.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Come on down. The weather's nice. It actually dipped into the high 60s today. I had my sweatshirt on earlier, but yeah, it's nice and warm down here.
Well, I'm envious because we're in the middle of a windstorm and no power and freezing cold temperatures. And we just got back from Colorado where it was freezing cold and lots of snow. So
yeah,
I'm overdue for some sunshine.
Yeah, come on down.
Awesome. Well, thank you just really from the bottom of my heart this was just an awesome conversation. I feel like I just got to know you so much better and I want to know you even more. Yeah. So yeah, we'll definitely stay in touch.
Sounds good.
Okay. Awesome. Have a good one. Right. Thanks so much.
All right, you too. See
Bye.
Bye.
Wow. So that discussion with Paul was so powerful. Hopefully all of you felt the same. So here is the truth that I am going to leave you with today. It is so important for you to be willing to share your story. It's scary. I get it. It requires you to be truly vulnerable. But the greatest part about it is that it is so freeing to you to get real and to be open and honest and admit your struggles. And not only does it have the potential to change your life, to tell your story, but also the lives of countless others. So ask yourselves this: where in your life could you be sharing a little deeper part of who you are and the reality of your life story? Get out there and be willing to share it with others, because I promise you, you have no idea how many lives you can change. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm really excited to do even a few more shows along the lines of alcohol abuse in a lot of different formats. I look forward to recording those in the future. Definitely give me some feedback. And to give me some feedback, please go over to my new social platform, eviefats.locals.com. Follow me there, much more personal. And now that I'm not on social media, it really is the only way for us to socially stay engaged. So I highly encourage you to do that. And most importantly, I would really appreciate the support. I'm starting from scratch, giving up my Instagram account and giving up my Facebook account, and it's scary stuff. But if you value the things I have to say and what you're learning and the stories that you're hearing on this show, please go over there, follow me, and spread the word to those people that you think would value this message as well. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you next time.